Hello everyone, welcome back to our video series on building a red team cyber range lab. In our previous video, we were successful in adding a child domain to the root forest, which was the gh.afro.local. And we also showcased adding a user to that child domain. What we did not do was adding or joining a new server or a new workstation to the child domain. So in this video, that is going to be what we're going to be doing. Now, instead of doing the typical Windows machine being joined to the domain, we are going to take a different approach and actually join Ubuntu server 20.04. So what you see on the screen is going to be the specs for this particular server. So let's jump into the configuration and the lab setup. So before we can join a Linux machine or Linux distribution to an Active Directory, there are some few packages you would need to install to facilitate the whole process. So if you can see on the screen, there are some few packages we have to install, and using the typical sudo apt install, these are the few packages we would require for the AD integration to work from Linux machine. So of course we will need internet connection for this to happen, so carefully type these into your console, and let's go ahead and install these packages, and before we can continue with the whole process of joining the machine to the domain. All right, so there are going to be some few questions that will be asked. So in this case, it's asking for the RAM, which is going to be gh.afro.local, and then we hit OK. And the servers for the RAM is going to be 172.100.2.10, which is going to be the GHDC01 server. All right, once that is done, we'll go to OK and hit OK, and let us provide the administrative server for the Kerberos RAM, which is going to be the 172.100.2.10, which is the same as the domain controller. And what is this actually happening is it is going to build our curve5.conf for us, which would actually visit later on and make some changes to it, so it would work for us. I am going to pause the video, and then I'll be right back once the whole installation is completed. Alright, welcome back. So the installation is done. Next task we are going to do is to assign static IP address to the network interface. I went ahead and changed the network interface to the GH interface, which is the 172.100.2.0 /24 range. So right now, if I type ifconfig, we don't have any IP address assigned to our interface, which is the ENS33. So let's go ahead and update that information. So sudo nano, you can use V or Vim or whatever you want. It should all work. So for Ubuntu 20.04, the changes to a network interface is within NetPlan, right? And then if you hit tab, that should give you your default file to make an update or changes to your interface. In my case, it's 00-installer-config.yaml. Yours might be different, but it will still be under the NetPlan subdirectory. Okay, so I'll hit enter, and this is how it will look like, because this is set to DHCP. So we are going to actually set to static IP address. This is very, very sensitive, so be very, very careful as to how we make these changes. Okay, so we will change DHCP 4 to false. So that means we are going to assign static IP addresses, and we will set the addresses here. Okay, and we are going to assign an IP address of 13, I think that is what we had, /24, and then hit enter. And as you can see, they are very aligned, and we are going to provide a gateway 4, and that is going to be our gateway. Okay, yeah, and then we are going to provide name servers. In our case, we only have one name server, so it's going to be name servers. Okay, and we will put the addresses here. Addresses, okay. All right, and that will be the domain controller. I think everything should be good, and then Control X and save, and we'll type sudo net plan and apply, and it looks like everything worked for us. So if you don't see any error, that means everything worked successfully. If you see some error, please go back and make sure that you type everything exactly as it looks right now. So if you now do ifconfig, now we have an IP address assigned to us, right? Okay, so now what is going to be our next task is to make some updates to the DNS record. So we will go into, let me clear the screen, and sudo nano resolve.conf, and we are going to assign the name server to our domain controller. Okay, and then domain is going to be gh.afro.local, and then search domain gh.afro.local, and I think that should be enough for us. Now there is one particular thing with newer versions of Ubuntu, and that means particularly with the DNS entry, is when we enter these entries and we reboot the machine, it defaults back to the default entry. That means they don't survive reboot, so which is not going to be good for us. So we need to make it in such a way that it actually survives reboot. This resolve entry actually is a symbolic link, right? So in order for us to actually make a change and make it permanent, we need to remove that. So let's remove the resolve.conf file. Okay, and now we can create a new one with a fresh empty one. Okay, and then we'll save it, and we are going to make this immutable. So that means even if the machine reboots, it will still have the exact entry without having to go back to the default one. So with that, we're just going to have to type sudo and this, and then the plus, and then I, and resolve.conf. Okay, so that should make it immutable. DNS is done. Let's review how our curb configuration looks like. Okay, so sudo curb.conf. Okay, so we did answer some few questions initially. So as you can see, it's been pre-populated for us here, right? But we will make some few changes here. So let's actually save a copy of that as a backup, and then we work on the original one. And in case we mess up, we can always go back to the backup and fix it. So etc krb dot b. Okay, now let's go back in. Alright, so I have to pause the video to input all these so that we don't have to spend time going through line by line. So take a quick look at what I have so far, and then make sure that yours is close to what I have for these. All right, Control X and then save it. And let's see. So the next one is we are going to try and see if light change to our host name. So we can actually go here and nano etc host, and then we can point our actual IP address. This might not be necessary, but okay, so okay, yeah, okay. All right, so now comes the real deal. Let's see if we can actually have the curve and all those things working for us. So we can type sudo and let's discover the Active Directory. So sudo ram and discover, and then gh.afro.local. Okay, so that seems to give us an output. Now that we can confirm that we can discover the domain, let's try and see if we can join the domain, which is the most important. So ram join, and if you need more information, you can just type ram and hit enter, and it will give you the options on how to join, how to leave, how to list, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, everything should be good. All right, okay, so it says successfully enrolled machine in RAM. Okay, so that is a very good sign, and we can actually confirm if let's check if the user if we can check on another user. So in the previous video we created Patrice Lumumba as a domain user, so we can actually type p lumumba at gh.afro.local and see. Yep, that worked. And another confirmation is, let's go back to the domain controller. Now, prior to this video, prior to joining it, there was no entry for the server on it. So let's go and see if it actually did work. Yep, so yep, we have it here. It just joined. Good. And also from a previous which I didn't record, I joined this workstation to the domain, but of course you should know how to do it because we have done it before in the forest route. Okay, usually when a user authenticates to a Linux machine, sometimes their home directory can be automatically be created for them. At other times they may not be created for them, so they will not have a home directory. So in order for us to have that done, we can just edit some a file, which will make it a lot easier for us. So we can actually do sudo nano and etc pam.d and then common session, and in here we can go all the way down to the last and then add this optional. Okay, and that is going to be pam. Let's save it and let's go back. Okay, okay, that should work. So now it's telling us that it was able to create a home directory for that user, which is a very good sign. So now we have that out of the way. What else can we do? Let me actually exit out of it. Now if we type, let's say, Lumumba's name, and we always have to specify the domain name in addition to that, sometimes it can be a bit annoying, or it can lead to typing and all those kind of things. So there's an easy way for us to actually make switching to a user to be just the username without the domain name. Right, so see how it says it doesn't exist. That is not good. So that means there has been a configuration that requires us to always specify the username at the domain. So let's remove that restriction. In order to do that, let's go into this file, nano sssd conf. Okay, and what we can do here is, if you can see, it says use fully qualified names is set to true. We can set that to false. Okay, so that means we can now type the username without providing the domain name. All right, and then also let's make another adjustment here and type DNS, DYN DNS. And the reason why we add in this is, for some reason, when you add a Linux machine to a Windows Active Directory, I don't know if it's by default or it's across the board, but what I've come across is it's difficult when you add it to the domain. For some reason, the DNS doesn't properly working. So for instance, if you are on a Windows machine and you want to ping the host name of this Linux machine, it doesn't work, it doesn't find it, so you have to provide the IP address. So I did some research and I found out that it's an issue that people face, and according to responses and solutions, people say when you add this particular entry, dyn dns underscore update is equal to 2, then when you ping or do a name resolution from Windows machine against the Linux counterpart, that seems to resolve and works. All right, so once we have this set up, we can do what? Control X and save. Okay, and if we do administrator, okay, that works. Good. Okay, yep, that should work. Okay, so now then the next task is, if we, now that this machine is joined to the domain, it doesn't mean that all the users or specific users would have access to it. We have to enable or allow access to this machine. Now we can do it individually, or we can just give it access to anyone within the domain. We will go for the last option. Again, in the future, we might want to limit it as we try several tests to see how things work. So in order to provide access for all users, this is how we use ram permit -- all, and that will give access to all. Okay, now let's try and see what we can also do. Next is, how about we add some, let's say, a sudoers to the group. Add some users to the sudoers group, right? So in order to do that, we'll go to sudo, and then we'll go to etc sudoers. Okay, and let's actually call them domain admins. Make sure that I have everything typed right. Okay, Control X, and we have that saved. So now we can test SSH and see if it actually works. Now we can confirm that this user can SSH into this box, and we can also confirm that we didn't have to provide the domain name when we try to switch over to Lumumba, right? And in fact, let's also try SSH from a Windows box. So this Windows machine is connected, is joined to the domain, and we have logged in with Patrice Lumumba's credential, and we can use PADI. Okay, and then P Lumumba. Alright, so we can confirm that we've been able to join a Linux machine to our child domain, and there's a two-way communication between both the Windows machine, Windows workstation, and the Linux server. I think that actually is it. So let's try and actually ping workstation and see if that works. Of course, the DC. Okay. All right, so that brings that to the end of our video for this segment. If you like the videos, you can leave a comment. Your feedback, your suggestions, they are all welcome. Again, if you haven't, I would recommend that you subscribe to the channel, and so that each time that there's a new video, you will be the first to be notified about it. Thank you, and y'all have a nice day. Bye-bye.